Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Brill, and today we've got two special guests, Perouz Taslakian and Orlando Marquez. And they are past winners of the Now AI conference, an internal conference we have here at ServiceNow. But they're going to walk us through their presentations, how they talk about AI, and give us some tips and tricks for our future presentations, and, of course, give us some great insight into what's happening here at ServiceNow.
Hi, Bobby. Thank you for having me.
Hello, good morning.
Perouz, I want to start with you because your journey into AI is so interesting. It's almost like the plot of a movie I swear I've seen.
Yeah, so I have come to AI recently, relatively speaking. Recently, as in the last 9 or 10 years. I come from a computer science background. I did all my degrees in computer science, undergraduate, master's, PhD. And the degree I was in, the work I did during this period was mostly in theoretical computer science. So I did discrete and combinatorial geometry for my thesis. Then I did a postdoc on it. Then I was a professor for a while, again, doing research on very theoretical stuff and very mathematical. And it was only when I moved to the industry around 2016 that I started looking into AI. I started my industry experience mainly by when I started working at Morgan Stanley as a quantitative strategist, where I was building these optimization models for optimizing foreign exchange transactions.
So you're a human calculator.
No, maybe. Well, beyond being about numbers, math is really about seeing patterns in things and defining general uh, formulas or general statements about these patterns that can capture most of what we see around us. The same thing about foreign exchange transactions. I say there is a pattern out there, and as a mathematician, as an applied mathematician, you want to be able to capture these patterns.
Before we get deep into talking about the Now AI conference and your research paper and all that, um, because you've been in AI longer than most of us, and really, again, how the soup is made, so to speak. What attracted you to AI? What was the thing that you went, okay, this is a career I want to engage more in?
So I think at the time, at Morgan Stanley, these models were getting more and more complicated, and they were like very heavy. And every time you make a change, it was like small epsilon difference that you were pushing this forward. My sense was that we needed a different approach. And AI is a different approach to these more traditional optimization algorithms. Not to say that these algorithms are not useful, they're useful under certain conditions. Um, but for AI, the usefulness became when you needed to solve tasks that needed human type of intelligence, where the task is not 100% clear, when the output can be this or that, when it's not a concrete thing, let's say, that you need to answer, like language, right? You can summarize a piece of text in many different ways. They all might be right. Some are better than others. And for these kinds of questions, this is when you need AI.
It's interesting how you say that because that's a very academic or almost professor professor. Oh my gosh, I can't even use that word. I'm not that smart. A way a professor would speak. See, and that proves my what I was about trying to say was it's not important what the answer is, or the answers have a little bit of a fluidity to it. That's a different way of thinking. Is that an attractive part of this?
Well, it definitely is because honestly, I feel like there's more human in this kind of research because there's also human preference, right? I would like my answers to be a certain way, and you would like your answers from the AI to be a different way. And the ability to adjust to these preferences is something AI is able to do, especially Gen AI is able to do.
That's a different way of thinking about AI. I think so much of us like, I want AI to do it 100% the way I'm thinking. And you're looking at it as like, no, it's going to give us differences. What's the benefit of those differences?
The benefit of the differences is that if we want to integrate AI in our everyday life, um, we're human, we're different. we have preferences, and it's much more enjoyable for me for the technology to adjust to my way of being as opposed to me adjusting my way of communication or my way of extracting information. Uh, so instead of me adjusting to the way the technology was built. So this is something very attractive for me, which also makes AI a bit difficult to research, difficult to evaluate. But I think that's the fun of it.
As we get deeper into AI, this idea of fun does keep bubbling up, and I, it seems like it's a game sometimes. Which, of course, brings me to you, Orlando. What's your journey into AI?
Well, I got into AI actually since I was a teenager back in the late 1990s, early 2000s. It was very fascinating to me to think that we can have machines that could actually think. I look back when I first started thinking about AI, and it was about just playing chess back in like the late 1990s with like IBM Deep Blue that beat like Gary Kasparov. I was like, oh my God. And I was lucky enough to live in this period of human history where we're actually building systems that leverage AI for complex tasks. So I'm an engineer really by training, but I got into AI ever since I thought we could actually build AI systems that people could use, and that's the case now. I think a challenge that we have today is like AI can do many things, right? Like it can do many things, but sometimes we don't know exactly where to place it so that it can actually be helpful. And that's I think it's a collaboration between engineers, product people, researchers, designers. Like okay, like let's collectively think. Okay, AI can do this, and this is going to be a fit for this problem that we currently have.
What are the cool things that you see in AI from a software engineer and someone thinking about AI?
So to me, I mean, the biggest thing right now, and like why I'm excited to live in this period, is that we can actually put like AI is good enough to go into a product that anybody can use, right? Like we didn't have that 10, 20 years ago. Like you had systems that were clunky, hard to use, but now AI is so good that you can just give a command and it will do many things that before required a lot of engineering, rule based, if else condition, very complex stuff. Now, having said that, it's not like it's very easy to use and they can do anything you want.
Mm.
But I think to me, the key point is that it's getting good enough that we can build AI based systems that can simplify certain aspects of human activity. Not everything yet, but I think we're getting there, and that to me that's progress. Like AI has gotten into your hands, into your phone, into your browser, and before we didn't have that. um, and it saves us time, and hopefully we can do more with that time, right? uh, but it's kind of like unlocking a promise to
Mm.
simplify human activities that are maybe tedious, time consuming, and focus on what's fun, right?
I like that phrase you use, the unlocking the promise of something that, we're actually gonna be able to do something. Well, that helps set up this conversation we're having of here's AI, and we gotta make it do something we actually need and care about. Um, what's your role in working with AI, and how is that working within, what you're doing here at ServiceNow?
Yeah, cool. So um, the way we work at ServiceNow is normally there are people who do applied research and like fundamental research. I'm more on the applied research part of the house, meaning that we try to bring the latest and greatest AI into products that ServiceNow offers to customers. So the product that I'm involved in is called Flow Designer. It's one of the main products of ServiceNow that allows you to create workflows. And workflows are like at the core of what ServiceNow offers to customers, employees. Now, creating that workflow takes a lot of human thought and like understanding the platform, the system. So my role was, okay, Flow Designer is a great product, but it's a little hard to use. It takes people sometimes 1 to 3 months to really get into building a workflow manually. So the idea was, and this was 2 3 years ago, can we bring AI to simplify the creation of workflows and then bring it down to, I don't know, 3 days or one day, right? So this product called Text to Flow is what we started working on when we first saw models that could generate text in a very coherent way. So myself and my team had to get really deep into understanding, okay, how are these workflows built? Why are they so hard to build? Where is the AI going to unlock or bring most of the value? So we spent a lot of time understanding the product. You have to understand, like, what are the pain points, right? So that's how I came into learning about workflows a lot, so much that even sometimes people think that I know enough to be a PM about, because I know so much about the requirements, right? Like how things work. But that was the only way to really build something reliable.
Well, again, you mentioned that thing, pain points, and it's got to be a strange day where the product solves pain points, and AI is a lot about finding pain points. So you're working with a lot of things that are normally very combative. I don't even know if that's the right
Yeah,
word, or
yeah,
is that the right way to
but
look at it?
that's a good point. Like if you think about technology at a higher level, like technology is supposed to give you tools or means to solve a problem, right? Like you think about a hammer. Like, okay, you have a nail, and okay, you want to hammer the nail. And the better your hammer is, the less force you need, the less the risk of getting injured. So you have this friction, like you're saying, this okay, you got a problem that is like doesn't want to be solved, and you get technology to solve it. Same thing with AI. So you have an existing system that has drawbacks like any system, and then you try to find, okay, where can AI be used to diminish those drawbacks or limitations, right? Or simplify things or improve things. And that's how we see it, right? When we do requirements gathering, understanding the problem, it's okay, like I need to find a way so that instead of taking 1 month to build a workflow, I want to bring it to 3 days.
Listening to the two of you discuss AI in your projects, it's no wonder that you guys won. You're great at with telling this story.
But my barber, they asked yesterday. Like the guy asked me, "Okay, what do you work on?" Oh, I work on AI. Oh, really? Okay, tell me. Should I be scared? It's like, yeah, I think, okay, you have to explain, right? In very simple terms, like what are we doing? What are the limitations? Then things that we don't know, but you approximate an answer in ways that your barber will understand you. So I think that's a good test. Actually, if you can explain AI to your barber and the barber understands it, then you're probably a decent communicator, right? A decent presenter.
So let's talk about the Now AI conference, which is coming up at the end of the year in November. And for those of you within ServiceNow, submissions are due by the end of June. But I want to talk about your submissions and the papers that you wrote and just how important it is how you crouch. But I want you two to walk us through your submissions and the papers you wrote, and just how important it was for you to craft this presentation to a different type of audience. Orlando, why don't you start?
Yeah. So in a nutshell, the project was given a paragraph or text that says, "I want my workflow to be at A, B, C, D." Given just that text, we want to generate the entire workflow. Okay. And maybe we're not gonna get 100% what you wanted. We're gonna get you 80%. And then you review it and you modify a bit and you get, okay, you're done. Like that was in a nutshell, going from text, an idea that a customer has, to the full workflow. So we actually did one of the first papers that we did was on RAG to retrieve information to give to an LLM to reduce hallucination. And there was a paper we published even before the Now AI conference. And that got very well received. We presented at a conference in Mexico. Uh, and we use that as, okay, this actually is an interesting problem. We got to build on top. So we expanded the solution all the way. Then by the time we got to the Now AI conference, we had a full working system. And then that's what we submitted to the conference. It's like, okay. And it wasn't easy, right? Because we did all this work and we had all like at least one paper already published, another paper like coming. How do we condense it into 4 pages? Right. And I think what helped me and helped the team is to focus really on what was the value of the project. So, you know, we write papers for academia, we write patent applications, right? And when you do those things, you stress different parts of your work. But in the Now AI conference, we wanted to stress the value that the AI system brought. So we framed the paper really on just problem solution, why solution is good. And it was kind of risky because, like, I remember now we got some reviews, like people who review the paper, right? And I remember one review was very critical because we didn't have a lot of like experiments and like a lot of like comparisons. But you know what? It's like we got 4 pages. Sorry, like you gotta pick what you think is more interesting, right?
When you're doing your math homework, you're supposed to be showing your work, right? But that has to be a very different way of thinking, or at least a different way of presenting, correct?
As a researcher, you work so long on the technical aspect, and then when presentation comes, you're not showing any of that. You don't have to explain everything during the presentation. All you have to do is convince enough people to go and look at the paper. This is like an advertisement for your work. So think of it that way. And I think then it will be fine. And just relax, have fun on stage. Especially now AI, it's a very friendly audience.
Well, let's talk about the audience a little bit, because this is a little different than a traditional academic audience where they just have a paper to read or you're presenting to professors. Here, you're presenting not only to computer scientists and data scientists, but also product managers and people involved in the business side of it. How do you present differently to this type of audience?
So the Now AI presentation was mainly targeted to people who are not necessarily interested in knowing the details right now, even if they would understand it. That's not the point. The point is that they, the presentation we gave should be interesting enough for them to go and pick up the paper and read it. So this is the objective. And I try to focus on the question of why should anyone care about this work? And this is the thing that I kept asking myself over and over. And I made a lot of slides that did not make it to the last version. And a lot of slides were like kicked out. And then finally I had a set of things that I thought would be okay. This is the right balance between a bit of technical content, a bit of motivation as to why we need this, a bit of why you should care about our solution because it's going to make your life so much better and in so many ways. So the project is called cross-context caching. And the point of that project was to explore the question of how can we design an LLM so that it generates text conditioned on some input without having to go through the prompt. So let me give you an example. Suppose I'm a company. I have a parental leave policy of some sort. Now I want to ask an LLM, am I allowed, how many days of parental leave am I allowed? And the way this works is that you take a general purpose LLM. That's a default way of doing things. You take a general purpose LLM, you take the policy document, this long policy document that you have internally, paste it in the prompt of the LLM and ask it the question, and most LLMs will be able to answer you properly, which is great. So our question was that, can I skip pasting this huge block of text in the prompt and inject it instead directly in the layers of the transformer? So that, number one, the answer I get is specific to my company, to my parental leave policies, number one, and it's not just general. And processing is fast. Because now, every time someone asks the LLM about parental leave, what's happening with the prompting method is that the language model is reading that whole text and then generating an answer. And if you have 100 employees a day asking you the question, the language model is reading that document 100 times. So we were like, okay, can we skip this step and just, do it that way? This was what the project was about.
Now, Orlando, you made a big choice into presenting a more condensed or even bite-sized version of your paper for this particular audience. You didn't go into a lot of detail. You didn't show your work, as we talked about earlier. How and why did your team make this choice to present in a compacted way?
Yeah. Yeah. So what we said to ourselves is that, okay, look, we're gonna put the core of our last 2 years into 4 pages. We're gonna frame it really around the customer value, and then we're going to write 2, 3 more papers about each part of it. Right. And even in the slides in the presentation when I gave it at the conference, last page was future work. and we're gonna submit this. We're gonna kind of deep down, like deep dive into these components, but we're not. That wasn't part of the presentation. But we knew there was material to be expanded on later.
Sure, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, give people more. Is that how did that sit with the team and sit with you? Did that change your way of thinking, about more research that you're doing to just break it up?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, yeah. I think that's something that we learn is really try to frame our work around if we fix that problem, is going to expand the usage of the product, or is going to minimize discomfort on using the product. So kind of frame the applied research and the engineering around that. And everything else is not that it's secondary, but if you have to maximize one metric among all metrics, we feel that you got to maximize the value that we bring to users, to customers.
Perouz, I want to ask you, how did you get your presentation ready? Because there's almost a theatrical element to presenting. You have to stand up in front of people and actually speak. It's not just handing them your paper. But you've only got 10 minutes to do this. How did you prepare your work for your audience?
Yeah. So I had to practice. Practice was so while I'm fine getting up in front of people, technical audience, and talking about all the technical aspects of the work. For me, talking about the technical work to a non-technical audience needed some preparation because I needed to keep myself in check to focus on the important questions. I didn't have too much time, right? I had 10, 12 minutes to present, and I had to spend the right amount of time motivating the problem, giving some sort of technical information, and at the finally trying to convince people that this is a good direction, good project. And it definitely has changed the way I started thinking about projects, whether I'm defining a new project to start, and whether I'm asking the right question. So I asked myself whether or not I'm asking the right question along during the project itself. So if a project takes me a year to accomplish, so at many intervals, many points in time, we always revisit like, why were we doing this again? Is this useful? Is this still relevant? Is because being able to kind of drop a project if it's no longer relevant to the end user is also important, and it's also a superpower because you get attached to your project. You don't want to drop them, So it's but we need to build this superpower, so to speak.
So that brings up this idea of feedback, where if you get feedback from an academic versus somebody in the business side, it's two presentations, two types of feedback. How does that play into your presentations?
Yeah. So I think sometimes in industry, because of the high stress and high pressure, when we present to executives, there is one or two things they care about. Like sometimes, like it's hard to know, right? Like what do they care about? Because you don't talk to them very often, right? But you kind of have to make like a risky bet when you present something. You're not going to present everything because you're going to lose them. And maybe what they care about comes at the end, and they're like, okay, why am I here, right? So you try to get information from maybe people who work with them, from PMs. Okay, like what should I emphasize? That's one thing that we learned. Same thing when we presented at the conference. What do people care about? And we had big executives who were there and they didn't know a lot about what we were doing. They didn't know the details. So you have to sort of pick. Okay, I'm going to stress this thing and this thing. And sometimes, you know what, you make the wrong bets because what they care about wasn't there. Versus sometimes in academia, people like to think and they like to like kind of know everything and like all these questions. So it's a different audience, right? And I think we were able to tune that for the conference.
And for you, Perouz, how did that play for you?
I asked my team, so I was very lucky that I worked with a very talented set of research scientists who helped me give feedback on the slides and helped me generate some of the charts I asked for in terms of like number of flops and speed and this and that, things that product people would be interested in. So there was some work that went into the presentation, but I think it was totally worth it in the end.
Well, it's to be expected as both of you were winners last year, and who knows, maybe at the end of this year, you'll be winners again. I want to thank everybody listening and watching for joining us, and I want to thank our guests, Perouz Taslakian and Orlando Marquez. I'm your host, Bobby Brill, and if you are interested in learning more about the conference, check out the show notes. And of course, please hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. We've got some great content coming up talking about AI and, of course, all things ServiceNow. Thanks for watching.